Let's talk about how to make your carving look more dynamic instantly. What does seeing this fish behind me make you feel? Kind of meh? Yeah, that's probably about right. Because it's just kind of sitting there. It's flat. It's not showing you anything about that fish, anything representative at least. It may be the most beautiful carving in the world, but there's no action, there's no dynamic composition happening. And that's really important because you could put a ton of work into, a carving that you create, but unless you really sell it with the motion that you're applying to the actual fish in its stand, in its setting, you're not going to actually, give it the justice it deserves. There are instances where, flat actually works. And I'll show you one right now, actually, before we get too far. This is a 5-foot sturgeon carving that I did. Now, a sturgeon is not something that's going to rise to a dry fly. It just kind of mills around flat. So when I carved a 5-foot sturgeon, I basically kept it in a horizontal position. And that's okay. So that's the instance. That's a good opportunity to show that. Most situations, like this largemouth bass, for example, that fish is dynamic, it's moving upward, the orientation is chasing, and that is what you expect of a bass. And that is adding a wedge effect. It's adding a simple 15 to 20 degree angle to your carving. Now it adds instant tension, something in the composition that's driving it upward, and it's creating a wedge. So if you took, for example, on this brook trout, you basically just put a wedge. It creates a pizza. There you go, instant tension. Do that. What's an example of a downward facing wedge? This carp, for example. This is a downward 15 to 20 degree wedge because carp feed on the bottom. The composition of the base, which is simple because I didn't want to detract from the carving, has that fish pointing downward toward the fly that's in the base. And there you go. That is what you expect to see from a carp. Now you can go crazy with these in any orientation you want, and it's just important to consider the fish that you are actually trying to represent, what that fish would do naturally. If you take those kind of things into consideration, adding a little bit of life to those carvings that you put a lot of effort into, it'll pay off in the end composition.